Now, as I mentioned before, the World Health Organization is lauding Sweden as a model in coronavirus fight for resisting lockdown. Now, this is so incredible. This is very interesting to me, confusing in a lot of ways, because to me, this seems to challenge all of the narratives about this right now, right? Whereas one side saying, oh, well, they're working with China and they're lying, which, again, I don't even think that's wrong. I mean, the World Health Organization, first of all, is an international organization. So they're not supposed to be working for any one government. So the funny thing is that Trump suggests that they should be working for the US, but they're actually working for China when neither of those are correct. The point is that they're so used to buying out the World Health Organization, they're supposed to be on our side. That's not how that works. So they just gave away that they have been up until this point, bribing them, which is essentially funding them to do what you want. And you understand that the World Health Organization only has scientists that work for them as due to the people that fund them, right? So if the US is funding them predominantly, they use predominantly US scientists. Right. And we have to understand that the scientists that work in this location, including that worked in the places in China, were U.S. people. So to suggest that they're somehow not aware of what was happening from the beginning is just on its face stupid. They knew. People that were working with these are U.S. officials working at scientists on behalf of the U.S. government in the World Health Organization in regard to what was going on from the very beginning. Easy to look up. But you see, they just overlook these nuance points that they know people won't look further into. But the reason this is interesting is because the World Health Organization, right, as one side, is working with China. They're covering things up and they're helping China out, which could certainly be possible. I wouldn't put it past them to be bought off from anybody. But on the other side, right, we have this idea that from my perspective, I think it's pretty clear that we have a World Health Organization idea that's tied into the globalist idea. That's facilitating this effort to create a globalist government, to create the worldwide martial law medical idea. So why would they be doing this, right? Why would they be agreeing with the model for Sweden if that was the case? Now, I'm not saying this couldn't just be them trying to lay shade over what they're doing, trying to mislead people. But I find this to be quite interesting. And I'm interested to see where all the people that are blaming the World Health Organization for working with China in regard to how this seems to counter the agenda for how that was going forward. Now, all the political BS aside, I find this very interesting because Sweden is I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the only place, there might have been another one that I didn't see, but that actually challenged the idea of no quarantine. Now, I take that back. I think there was a couple others, but either way, Sweden was the most that was recognized because they're apparently basically at herd immunity already. And they let people, oh, God forbid, do what they wanted with their bodies. Make their own intelligent decisions about how they live their lives, being aware that there was a problem because the government let them know, as is what a government should be doing, but then allowed them to make their own choices. So crazy, right? And clearly they're showing out that that was the right move. So ask yourself why, two things. Why our government lied to us about it at the beginning, because trust me, they knew that this was archaic, what we're doing. And two, why they're still doing it now. Even as the numbers have been shown to be false, even as they've clearly shown that the numbers are not only false, but that they're tied to, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is clearly has a profit motive in regard to how this goes forward. Why are they still doing them? Why is the Trump administration continuing their Defense Production Act? Why are we still forcing companies to make masks and ventilators when the numbers aren't even what we thought they were? That's no longer necessary. Why? I think it's clear because the agenda was to get these things moving regardless, as Whitney Webb's research has shown, whether we're talking about the AI template that they had planned out before, that they're just moving over to now and applying to the coronavirus, or the mass shooting scenario, all these different bills and legislations and agendas that they were trying to apply to mass shootings, trying to apply to anything else. They're just now shifting over into say, well, coronavirus. What do you think the odds are that everything that they thought would combat mass shootings just so happens to be exactly what we need to fight coronavirus? Listen, we can't be this dense. We have to realize that this is them just saying perfect opportunity to force in our agenda because coronavirus. Everybody locked down, right? And we have to remember that the lockdown order came from the federal government to begin. So whatever they're doing now, it starts with them and it all ties back in with the larger agenda, because now we're going to get into this pitted discussion about whether, Trump was misled by his scientists and the governors are the ones doing the bad thing. And now he's the one on the side of the fake. It's all fake. And it all started with him. And sure, he could have been tricked, but at the end of the day, if you think that there's even two things happening here, you're the one being tricked because the agenda is going forward. And as I'm telling people right now that are in discussions with me about that, the one thing you should be ready for, God forbid, I truly hope it doesn't happen, is that if this goes away, I'd hope that happens, but if this goes away, Suddenly, coronavirus is no longer the problem, which I think they're going to keep it there for some degree. But it just goes away, and the measures don't. Kind of like 9/11, right? Whether we have a lingering virus concern or not, if suddenly it goes away and suddenly we realize that it wasn't as severe and we've been fooled the whole time, and yet the measures stay. The Defense Production Act stays. The social distancing stays. The idea of all of these things, the vaccinations, the biometrics, all the things they're forcing in, when those stay, we need to start realizing that maybe he's part of it, which I feel pretty certain about, but I'm hoping people will wake up to it. Now, in the regard to, again, World Health Organization is just one aspect of this. We also have the CDC, which is both of these places are gross defunct places, grossly defunct. They are corrupted, bought out. The CDC is a vaccine production company. That's what they are. They are not there to keep you safe. That's what they say they are, and maybe at one point they were, but this has been completely co-opted by the government and in businesses that have vested interest in making sure that they're not regulated. And this is the company that's now saying they are suspending the reporting of influenza data. How in the world does that make sense? Why would they suspend the data of influenza? Well, let me tell you my theories. How about it's because they don't want you to recognize that the numbers are more, possibly, than what we're dealing with in coronavirus right now? How about they don't want you to see, possibly, that they're using those numbers to conflate the coronavirus numbers? How about any number of reasons that they're doing exactly what they've done every other time before this? As John Rappaport has continued to show you, as they've done with SARS, as they did with MERS, as they're continuing to do right now. These groups have been caught misrepresenting the numbers every other time before this. And now they're literally saying, well, we're just going to not show you anymore. As we're right now beginning to find out that there may be any number of ways that they're manipulating other things around us to make this the case, right? To make this the case. Now, I know people, that's apparently just blasphemy for some people today, which is ridiculous. Like, I really think we have a point now where we're seeing a lot of people that were screaming about, anti-war, anti-authoritarianism that are suddenly telling that you'll be censored, that how dare you challenge the World Health Organization, right? I think right now, if you've been supporting an independent outlet that you thought was, fighting for constitutional rights and fighting for your freedom and fighting against war, that is suddenly supporting that narrative, then you need to find a new outlet. Because I think you just realized what they really were. Because anybody that suddenly shifts over to saying that we need to blindly support what they're saying because virus is just either they've been fooled themselves, which means that they're not someone you should be paying attention to, or they were never real to begin with. Because you cannot go that route. And there are a lot of them. And I've made a point, I'm not going to call these people out. There's a lot of them. There's a whole bunch of independent media right now that are cheering on the idea of censorship. Saying that, that video with Dr. Erickson and the people saying that this wasn't severe, that medical professional that tested 5,000 people that came to the conclusion based on the data and multiple studies that it wasn't as severe. Yeah, that medical professional that YouTube just censored, they're saying, yay, that person shouldn't be there, right? As I said yesterday, that is not misinformation being censored. That is an alternate opinion based on data being censored. Very different. That's crazy. That is like censoring. I can go off on a million examples. The point is that they are choosing to remove a fact-based opinion that they just disagree with. And here they are removing data about influenza, so we can't even come to our own conclusions about it. That is what's called controlling the information. They need to control the narrative. So if they can control the flow of information, it's much easier to control the narrative. And that's what we're staring at. That's what's happening right now. Here's from the Mises Institute, New York versus Texas. This is from today, yesterday. This is the idea that this is clearly showing you that even if you take the numbers at face value, which I think we should clearly not be doing, but even if you look at the numbers, we're being told at face value, you come to find out that just New York and New Jersey have almost 50% of the numbers. How does that not immediately show you that this is not what we're being told? That either shows me that New York has something else that they're dealing with, or for whatever reason, New York has an agenda to try to more aggressively misrepresent the numbers than anybody else. That's within this narrative, right? Under the discussion point that this is not what it seems, how does that not show you? New York has nearly 50 times more COVID-19 deaths per capita It says, if we combine the two states, New Jersey and New York, we find that a majority of COVID-19 deaths in the United States have come from them alone. Combined, these two states accounted for more than 51%. That's more than half. That is unreal. How do you explain something like that? Because you have to understand that this is something that they weren't taking measures to stop this. There were still interstate flights happening. I believe there's states still happening, interstate flights happening right now. So it seems pretty ridiculous. I think we have to admit to ourselves at this point that we are not getting the truth. We need to be able to see that. As always on this show, that's the first thing we need to come to terms with, that you are being lied to, that your government, from both sides, is misrepresenting the situation for a clear political reason. Now, when you start to get into the agendas behind it, that's when it starts to get conflated. I'm not saying it's not important, but the problem is that you get into these different theories, and then you get people that are both fighting for the same thing, fighting each other because they disagree on some point within those theories. And they accentuate that on purpose, just like with 9/11. Because as long as they keep us fighting ourselves, we're not fighting the true enemy. But they're lying to us. And just on a side note, by the way, I'll include this in the show notes. This is just yet another study. Wuhan COVID-19 synthetic origins and evaluation. I read through this today, and they actually linked to a really interesting another one that I'll actually try to include that as well. But this is just, as it says, the main result of this updated release is the formal proof that 2019 novel coronavirus, is what we're talking about. Coronavirus is partially a synthetic genome. Now, you shouldn't take this at face value. You shouldn't blindly listen to this one study, sort of how the mainstream is parroting that one Nature study that says it's not bioweapon, or not manipulated. Meanwhile, you've got all these other studies that are just as reputable saying the opposite, right? It's just cherry picking. But the point is, there are a lot of studies coming out showing that there is clear evidence of gain of function, HIV, SARS manipulation. These are clear. And yet we're being told the opposite. Why? Because there's a political agenda. We need to realize that. And one of the big points to talk about today that I'm going to hopefully talk about more with Whitney on this, because she's writing about this now. This company, as you may remember from her article, for A Killer Enterprise, how one of Big Pharma's most corrupt companies plans to corner the COVID-19 cure market. Emergent Biosolutions, right? These groups tied with all the worst people you could imagine. The Jerome Howers, right? As you can see their faces even, right? William Crowe was involved with this company specifically in allowing them to continue their destructive path with the anthrax vaccine, right? Tied to Giuliani, tied to Robert Kadlec, who is tied right now to the coronavirus research. Now, the point is, actually it was Bioport is how it started, and then it became Emergent Biosolutions. They were responsible for creating the anthrax vaccine. Right? They were at the time, and are still now, completely, incestuously tied in with the intelligence community, with the government. Okay? So they had a motivation to misrepresent the situation for profit. Okay? That's why it came out that it was Iraq that did this, and we need this vaccine for wartime, and it eventually came out that, guess what? Surprise, surprise, the anthrax came from Fort Detrick and was released by a military personnel. That's the actual story. That's the official story. Sort of relevant today, don't you think? As they were blaming Iraq and it turned out to be Fort Detrick? Isn't that funny? But here's the point. This company, Emergent Biosolutions, was responsible for making this vaccine that then went on to dramatically hurt people. People that were debilitated for life. People that had headaches that would never go away. Apparently it was upwards, a vast portion of the people that ever took this vaccine had constant effects that troubled them forever. That's what we're dealing with. And this company not only lied about that, they covered it up. They forced Congress and everybody else to make this happen. And then, of course, we have the anthrax false flag that was then used to force it back in again. Now, throughout numerous times throughout history, this company has failed. And this, funny enough, speaking of safety issues, the labs they were using never got licensed. They continually had safety issues, and they just continued to not do it because they had a guaranteed contract with the U.S. government. How does that make sense? And they eventually were going to lose that contract until suddenly there was the false flag, and then they got pushed right back in. This is the one, as she says, one of the most corrupt companies in vaccine history, and now they're in charge of making your coronavirus vaccine. As I said, the same company that knowingly hid the dangers of their anthrax vaccine, that the U.S. government forced military personnel to take, forced Congress to accept, resulting in permanent debilitation in some cases, is now making your COVID-19 vaccine. Oh, and don't forget their intelligence ties. Here's what Whitney said. Ultra-corrupt Emergent Biosolutions now backing its third COVID-19 vaccine candidate, the one being made by Johnson & Johnson, which Emergent will now manufacture. If you know Emergent's history, this is outrageous. And I really hope you'll read the article as well. And as if you remember, we went through this extensively on the channel that was then censored by YouTube, and I posted again. So it's on there for you, so you can watch it. This is what we're dealing with. And here's the actual thing that Whitney sent to me today. Emergent Biosolutions signs agreement to be U.S. manufacturing partner for Johnson & Johnson's lead vaccine candidate for COVID-19. $135 million, which is, not that much in the big scheme of things today. But the reality that this company, Emergent Biosolutions, is now going to be working on a coronavirus vaccine despite all of the conflicts of interest, despite their horrific track record, despite actually being part of a false flag in the past. Sure, let's just be okay with that now. It's just horrifying. I know we're going to talk about this more. And I know you guys really loved when I had Whitney on in the past few times, and I'm sure we're going to make that a regular occurrence. So we'll be talking about this more. And especially if and when this is actually the one that's rolled out and forced in people's arms, well, that'll become a hell of a lot more relevant, seeing as how the one that they forced in people's arms last time left them, dealing with problems for the rest of their life. Now, I could go off on this for hours, and I hope you'll read through this to find out their conflict of interest, the disgusting crossover between these groups to people that are right now doing the same things. It never ends. And all of this is building towards removing your rights. All of it. Regardless of what you think is happening, that's what I keep trying to force people to think about. It does not matter. There's no justification to allow these things to happen, but it's happening anyway. And just like 9/11, it will not go away. And so for all those alt media people I'm referencing that are shouting you down for daring to ask questions, they're the ones that will then be parroting the government talking points as we go forward, lest they be seen to be the obvious problem that they were to begin this. Right? Because if we go forward and they suddenly go, oh, whoops, sorry, looks like this is not going to go away and I was wrong, they won't do that. They'll become the WMD Iraq people that get pushed to the front because they lied and it worked for the U.S. government. That's what we're dealing with. They're trying to shout you down for asking questions when you have every right to. When this is not okay. This is coming from Beard Vet. By the way, Beard Vet just recently sent me some fantastic coffee, which thank you, by the way, if he's watching, and I hope you check out his channel. He's somebody that basically has his own company that sells beard oils and stuff like that and coffee, but it supports veterans. So it's pretty awesome. And then Brian from After Hours Live actually is somebody who I'll be joining in a moment after this. Who is working with him. So if you actually go to their channel, you can find links to actually help Brian's channel as well. But anyway, he shared this, and this is just absolutely crazy.
Hi, Amy.
Oh, hold on. Let me make sure you guys can hear this.
Have you ever heard with the sheriff's department? So are you aware that we're in a stay-at-home order right now?
Yeah, obviously.
By the government?
Yes, I am aware.
Okay, you're aware of that?
I am aware.
So I don't need to explain that to you?
No, you don't need to explain that to me.
Okay, I can if you need me to.
Obviously being, disrespectful right off the bat. Like basically, hey, idiot, you're supposed to be inside, right? Like, I'll explain it again if you want me to, right? This is how it starts out.
You can because your officer was just here 2 weeks ago.
Okay, do you need me to
and he explained it to me that you guys weren't enforcing that order.
Oh, we're about to.
Okay.
So you understand it though?
Okay, so why are you here?
Because your daughter is going to play at other people's home and you're allowing it to happen.
Your daughter is playing at other people's homes and you're allowing it to happen. This is the new normal, ladies and gentlemen.
They were over here as well. So are you here?
They've been talked to.
Okay.
So
no, I understand. Okay.
And so either you can acknowledge it or you can argue.
I'm acknowledging it.
Okay, stop having your...
Which this, by the way, this is exactly why you never... The more you say to police, the worse the situation gets. Lawyers will tell you that. The best thing you can do is never say anything. Unless you're obligated to, right? Don't say anything. Ask for your lawyer. They are not obligated to, and they're there just to tell you something, you just keep your mouth shut. I'm not acknowledging anything. I have every right to go outside. Unless you're charging me with a crime, get off my property. That's what you say.
Your kid go by other people's home.
Okay, I acknowledged it. Anything
Good.
else?
Nope, that was it. Apparently, there was some other
I
issue
acknowledged it.
before
I acknowledged
Okay,
it.
Good.
Anything
Thank you.
else?
Yeah, I need your last name. Amy, what's your last name?
I'm not, is there a reason you're asking for
I'm
it?
adding you to the screen so we can document that we had contact with you.
Is there a reason for it?
Yep, because you're
That's what
violating a
I'm
state order,
talking
which is
about.
a...
If you let me finish, that's what I'm
Because you're violating a state order.
explaining to you. Because you're violating an order,
I
We're
haven't
gonna-
violated an order.
we're going to have documentation in our screen with your name because we're here talking to you about that you said you just acknowledged.
Okay.
So then there's documentation.
I would like to
of
see
who
the
we
law
spoke
that
to.
requires me to give you that information.
Thank you.
You see how frustrated that makes them? And he's calling this in now because that she's not. He's calling in to get it. So why would they need her? If they can call in and get her name, why do they need? Because it's a power move. And the fact that the point is there is no law that requires her to say that, and that bothers them because the idea is that you're supposed to mindlessly acquiesce to anything that you're told by authority. That's what they expect. The point is that they're supposed to abide by the law. They're supposed to be law enforcement. So it's just so irritating for them when you actually say, hey, how about you know the law? And in this case, there isn't one. So I'm not obligated to do it. And that drives them crazy. Now, there are good policemen that don't act like this. So let's make that very clear. This isn't every policeman. I'm not saying everybody all the time should be disrespectful. I think you should never be disrespectful. There's no benefit to that. But you stand by your rights. Bottom line. Now, the reason I responded like that when I just jokingly said get off my property before was because of the way he was acting. If I opened my door and an officer was treating me like that, get off my property. Period. But if you're coming up and asking questions, regardless of your intentions being sinister or not, I'm not gonna be intentionally disrespectful because that's just wrong. In the sense that it will probably hurt you at the end of the day. It doesn't benefit you in any way, right? But these people, the people that act like this, that act like you're obligated to do what they say just because they're wearing that suit, they are the problem.
Because I haven't,
What is your middle initial?
I don't believe that I'm required to give that to you. Are
Okay,
we
for
done
middles.
here?
No, we're not.
Okay.
Your middle initial and your last name.
I'm not giving it to you. I haven't done anything wrong.
Okay.
I already
Perfect.
got it.
We got it.
See, and that was just the whole time, just trying to force her to say it. They already had it. He got it when he called in, right? That's what just happened. So this is just intentionally trying to make a point. This is just like Whitney said the other day about the person being pulled out of the train. It has nothing to do with enforcing social distancing. This has to do with enforcing the new normal, right? And just like someone commented in the chat, why aren't they wearing masks? Why aren't they wearing gloves? Because it's not the point. That's for you. That's for you peons, because you need to do what you're told.
Okay.
And that'll be documented too that you're uncooperative.
Okay.
Oh, no, now, and we're going to mark down that you didn't do what you were told. You see? I'm not making this. That's literally what she just said. We're going to document that you're uncooperative. So once we get social credit going, we're going to get a little mark on your name, and then you won't be able to do anything until you get that removed, until you prove to us that you're being compliant enough, right? We're going in that direction. Scary stuff, guys. I mean, seriously, this is the kind of thing that we're dealing with. And we're being told that we're irrational because we're concerned about these things. I mean, do you not see how crazy that is? We need to be able to realize that there is every possible reason to be concerned about all this. And seemingly, we're being told that we're crazy. Because other people are I guess, willing to allow fear to remove their constitutional rights. In my mind, those are weak-willed people that don't deserve those. But everyone gets them regardless, which is the point. Here's another one. Another one that's happening right now under the guise of all of this. Jackson Mayor suspends open carry law. Here, one step at a time, the boiling frog, right? Continuing to encroach on this. Why in the world would that even change anything? Tell me, please explain for me how a virus has anything to do with an open carry law. The point is, this is an agenda that they wanted to accomplish, so they're doing it. Because just like Mr. Lemp, I just spoke about yesterday, can be shot dead in his bedroom because they got an anonymous tip about a gun that didn't actually exist, because the guy had a juvenile record, and because coronavirus, everybody shut up and go away. We're not going to do any more investigation. We're not going to tell you what happened or why. That's what this is. By the way, if you didn't hear that story, and by the way, for those that I didn't get to put the clips up today from yesterday's show, I will. I was busy today. But the point is, if you didn't see it, a person got murdered because the police had an anonymous tip, shot him through his window, and the family want to know what happened, and they're just saying, go back in your house. You can't protest because COVID-19. And if you ask questions, we're not going to find anything out for weeks or months or years because COVID-19. So just go away. I'm not just making this up. This is what's happening. They just got their son was murdered. And there's no evidence there was even a crime being committed, and no one's even caring about it because COVID-19. Now we're suspending open carry laws because COVID-19. Soon that's going to become, gun confiscation because COVID-19. We already have it on the state of emergency in California that he has the right to do that because COVID-19. It's coming, guys. It always has been. Here's one. This is actually from April 7th. But this is the same concept that we're trying to show you, that this is not some far-fetched, ridiculous theory. Here's Henry Kissinger, of all people. Failure to establish post-COVID New World Order, quote, could set the world on fire. Here's just the one. Oh, of course, then I lost. Here it is. No country, not even the United States, can in a purely national effort overcome the virus. Addressing, despite that happening in the past, right? But now it's different because apparently he's psychic and knows this is different. Addressing the necessities of the moment must ultimately be coupled with a global cooperative vision and program. If we cannot do both in tandem, we will face the worst of each. Failure could set the world on fire. So basically saying we need to, come together as a one world order and make sure that this happens. Because we're crazy, because that's never been the case, right? Guys, this has been happening the whole time. And they just say, oh, conspiracy theory. And all the people in their, all the high-minded people with their elite circle, that's not appropriate. We're not supposed to consider those fringe conspiracy theories, despite how history has shown that they almost always turn out to be correct. But we're in the good circle, right? We like Fox News and CNN, and we don't like to give credence to those low-minded conspiracy theories, right? This is what they do. So all they got to do is say conspiracy theory, and they run for the hills, even though the mainstream media reports it 3 weeks later. Just like the video that we had censored about Dr. Boyle, that they then reported now. But it's still censored. Who cares about that, right? It's ridiculous. Now, one last thing on the coronavirus, because this is just something I wanted to mention that I continually see being spread around. This video is being posted and reposted and re-uploaded, and this guy's even saying, this is Bill Gates. If you remember, we've talked about this video on this show. Okay, this actually is a video that I find really fascinating, and it's about this guy basically talking about vaccines that are meant to modify behavior, in fact, specifically extremism, right? The idea that these vaccines were about, you could basically aerosol this and remove extremism from Muslims. That's what they're saying in this video. Or, in mass vaccinate people maybe without their knowledge and remove something, some religious extremism. That's the ultimate point, right? And so that's crazy. The simple idea that this is even being discussed is crazy. But it doesn't mean that it ever happened. And these kind of things are always being, presented to the Pentagon, to people like this. Right? So I'm not saying it's not relevant. I find it to be fascinating. And it just shows you that this is stuff that they're always considering. These kind of horrifying bio kind of things. But we don't, as I understand it, it's not something that ever happened, but that obviously doesn't mean it didn't happen secretly. But the overarching point is this is not new. It's something we've talked about from a long time ago. And now it's being positioned as this is Bill Gates talking about this. And of course, they repost a lower quality version of the video. But if you just quickly go over and look at the the higher quality version, it's obviously not Bill Gates. So the point being that there's so many things where people are intentionally trying to misrepresent the situation. Saying Bill Gates is talking about the very thing that we're dealing with kind of thing. And it gets spread and everyone freaks out and it cements the narrative about either one of two things. Either it cements the narrative in regard to why Fauci and Bill Gates are the only ones we should be concerned about, or that ultimately it's meant to, on the reverse side, use this to put out fake information to basically attack the idea that Gates is somehow nefarious. Like, see, that's all fake news. Either way, people are doing this stuff. That's the point. People everywhere right now, for whatever reason, whether it's because they want attention, it's because they want their social media to get boosted, because they just want views on YouTube, are intentionally misrepresenting things. But maybe they're just trolls. Maybe they just like seeing people freak out. Either way, we need to be adults about this, guys. We need to show discernment. We need to continually check things, ask questions, do diligence. Don't just read this and be like, oh, Bill Gates, share. Look at it. Ask yourself, does that look like Bill Gates? Unless you can prove it is, maybe it's not. That's how we have to think today. And just know, by matter of fact, that's not Bill Gates. And this is not what they're making it out to be. The reality is people are trying to fool you everywhere. And we need to realize that. And it's coming predominantly from people lost in the two-party paradigm, both left and right, trying to lie for their truth, as it were, which is ridiculous, but that's what they're doing. Well, the other side lies, so we have to lie to counteract those lies. And they think they're doing it for righteous motives. When at the end of the day, they're both misled. Don't be misled. Now, before I finish the last few things I want to mention about the war fronts here, I wanted to point this out. I'm actually unfamiliar with this, but I realized that I just found out that Derek Bros is going to be speaking at this. This is not, when I first saw this, I thought this was like, oh my gosh, another one. It's not. This is meant to call out Event 201. It's essentially a independent media counter to Event 201. And so they're gathering tomorrow, apparently. And I think this is, live streamed on YouTube. I'll have this link in the show notes. Derek Bros is one of the speakers. I don't know many of the others, but they're going to be speaking about what they believe is really going on. And in fact, showing extreme skepticism. How much you want to bet that whole thing gets censored? But I recommend you watch it for alternative theories, in particular because of Derek Bros, because I highly respect his work. And I think he's very intelligent and he's someone that is, very objective, which is the best thing you could ask for today. So please check this out and just basically keep an open mind, guys, because we don't know what's going on. If you didn't already get that from today's show.